In a tough economic climate, the battle to attract investors becomes increasingly important. On the 17th of September, Tshwane hosted a Trade and Investment Summit at the CSIR International Convention Centre. The city showcased some of their most desired investment destinations on that day, and doing so, focus was shifted to 5 key areas. SMEs also took this opportunity to exhibit their products and service offerings, ranging from pressed juice all the way to solar bags. On the second day, the city took the investors on a tour to these areas, and so we will highlight some of them. The first tour took us some 50-odd kilometers east of the CSIR International Convention Centre to a company named Bio2 Watts. We spoke to Sean Thomas, the managing director, about what this company does and why it's an investment attraction.
Bio2 Watts is a project development company. We focus on waste to energy, wet organic waste and also solid waste we're looking at. The Bronco Sprayed Biogas plant is our flagship project. Strategically, it made sense to position ourselves in Bronco Sprayed because our seed material for our plant is manure, and we are located on one of the large feedlots in the area, and we're within distance from the major industrial areas, so we receive lots of waste from the food industry. I must put up front that it's a utility type of returns. This project is, as you know, we've signed a long-term PPA with BMW for the power, and there are moving parts on projects like these, so our income is derived, I would say, more than 90% from power, but also there's opportunities around gate fees because we receive waste. There's the opportunity around heat, which we're currently not using, but we are considering. And there's the final product, which is a soil enhancer. So once the waste has gone through the plant and it's been digested and the energy potential has been extracted, the final product improves the quality of the soil. So I would say, though the business model is essentially based on power at this point, there are considerable opportunities to improve the overall efficiency of the plant and derive other sources of income, which we are exploring.
This plant's got a capability of producing 4.6 megawatt power. However, due to some challenges that we've been having since the beginning of the plant, we've been doing an average of 3.8 to 4 megawatts. These types of the projects, it really needs the investors who are looking at the long term versus the short term because of the huge project development cost that gets involved at the initiation stages. Long-term investment, when you build the plant, for instance, when you sign these long-term agreements, you're looking at anything between 15 to 30 years when you put the infrastructure. So I would assume that if you work along those lines, you should also take into account of the return on investments and so forth.
Leaving Bio2 Watts, we then travelled to Silverton, home to the Ford Motoring Company, but also where one of several automotive industry development centres lie. Lance Schultz, CEO of the AIDC, spoke to us about its developments there at Roslyn and what the future might hold.
I think the project in itself is something which had been conceptualized as a partnership where the local government had recognized the opportunity to develop the entire spatial planning within the region, strong convergence also taking place in terms of people commute as well as obviously the industrial and the commercial elements. So the idea here is to harness that into the live, work and play concept of bringing people together in very close proximity to their places of work and affording them the quality of lifestyle that they would deserve as citizens within the municipality. The development timeline of projects like this really depends on the scale of the business case in terms of having the quantum of investment from government, also ensuring that you've got both the public and the private sector aligned. I must state that the entire modal development is not only premised on automotive, it's also premised on the other key sectors within that area in Roslyn. So there's going to be a convergence of different developments. There's also the Roslyn Hub. There's the intention to also develop an inland port, and all of this has to form part of the complementarity within the spatial framework. So we're looking at a trajectory of 5 to 8 years in order to realize this large-scale development. There's already been some of the investment that's flown in terms of the commercial and the residential portion of it. A lot of that is announcements, I think, that we would save in the coming pipeline. We're busy finalizing design and pre-development also for a large retail area that would be developed, and that will be announced in the coming months. So we're quite excited about the prospects, and I think over the next 12 to 18 months we're going to see a quantum of investment within that space. So if we look at the province, I think one has to look at the entire footprint. It's contributing 14% to the gross domestic product. I think in terms of the percentage market segmentation, 42% of vehicles get produced within the province, and a large portion of that gets done right here in the beautiful city of Tshwane. The automotive sector, as I said to you earlier on, just as we were preparing, is a highly matured sector. The value chain also is largely premised on what we are doing internationally. A lot of the investment, and you mentioned the Nissan program earlier on, the 3 billion rand investment, the Ford investment, which will be announced pretty soon as well in terms of each future program bill, I think is highly significant and creates high leverage. An important thing I need to point out as well, which is quite significant to note, is that there's a very strong multiplier and induced effect in the automotive sector. So for each direct job that gets created, 6 indirect jobs get created. So you support an entire ecosystem in terms of families, and often these families are heavily reliant on the type of income that is derived through the sector and through the breadwinners.
One cannot think about investment without property development. We caught up with Rosella Dingle, CEO of Rainbow Junction, to hear what they had to offer potential investors.
Rainbow Junction is a mixed-use development, similar to Umhlanga Ridge or Waterfall. And that means it has a mixed basket of land use rights, and it's a economic node in its own. So it has a spread from residential to commercial to retail to educational, and in our case we incorporate a lot of public open space along a river because we face onto 4 kilometres of river frontage which is being rehabilitated. Rainbow Junction was a greenfield site in the middle of an already densified area 6 kilometres from city centre. So it runs along the Arpies River, the entire western bank of the Arpies River, and the established Paul Kruger Street node with very high traffic and a major transport interchange. So it's responded to the needs of the city in the socio-political, socio-economic. The marketing studies have informed us, the feasibility studies have informed us, and thus we have planned this new urban core or this new economic node according to responsiveness to current market. Something of 670,000 square metres of bulk is going to have a huge impact on infrastructure, and some of the infrastructure is already strained. So you have to consider electricity, water and all these other infrastructural elements that form part of development. So you work with the city. Definitely early on. The earlier the better. So what we did when we started our rights applications, there were 14 townships across Rainbow. We submitted them all in one go to the city way back. And then the city could see what the infrastructure challenges would be as these roll out, and we could work with the city in solving those. So jobs are estimated at 45,000 permanent direct and indirect jobs, so it's quite a big number. This would be when the whole thing is rolled out over time, and that's a piece of string and dependent on economic forces which are so volatile at the moment, you know. The capital value of this is about 12 billion. At the moment it's probably more, but that's the initial conservative sums. We would also then contribute about 10 billion annually to GDP in sales. We contribute to rates and taxes about 367 million annually. So those are big sums. That would pay for the infrastructural upgrades the city would have spent apart from bulk service contributions and those infrastructural upgrades a developer does as part of service installation.
Not wanting to be left out, we then finished the day off travelling to Denukeng, about another 52-odd kilometres north of Silverton, to 2 separate lodges for a nice and comfortable game drive. An area close to the local Gauteng residences to experience the wildlife and all its beauty. But is this all that can be offered? Charles Pretorius, founder of Kwalata Lodge, spoke about what investors can look forward to.
So we're one of the oldest products in the Junction Game Reserve. Currently, the whole focus of this camp has moved to corporate tourism. So we do a lot of conferences, team building, but also what's nice, we're in the Junction Game Reserve, and part of the Junction Game Reserve, there's a lot of tourism coming into Tshwane and also visiting the Junction Game Reserve. So we've definitely seen, since we've got free roaming Big Five, the influx of more tourists to this destination. Then our staff component is about 60 staff on a full-time basis, and then also all our buildings that you see around you, thatching, all the developments are done by local contractors from the Hammanskraal community. We also do educational expos where we bring learners out from the neighbouring communities, and tomorrow we're going to have the Grant Thornton Accounting Expo where 300 grade 10 and 11 learners will be exposed to nature, conservation. We'll have maths enhancement classes, we'll have an accounting enhancement class, and also a class on entrepreneurship. There'll be career guidance provided by exhibitors in the lodge. So we also try to make Kwalata very accessible, not just to, let's say, a high-paying audience, but also make it accessible for youth to be exposed to this. We do that in a partnership with our corporate clients, where they can basically fund the buses, the meals and the program, and to ensure that we've got a great venue where we can do these accounting expos, the educational initiatives with the children. Our operational costs, I would say, running a lodge is quite high. It's also very labour intensive, also skill intensive, and that's also where Kwalata is committed to local development. All our staff is from neighbouring community, from our community. Basically, if we look at the operational cost of a lodge that basically have about 60 staff, that can host events up to 300 people, and then on the other side we've also got 2 camps. I would say operational cost is about 8 million per annum, and that's conservatively. It's quite an expensive operation. And then also with anything aging, that would be also as buildings age, and as your product ages, there's obviously more costs involved. You can literally spend a night in a 5-star hotel in the city of Tshwane, have breakfast, and by 9 o'clock be out in the bush, be on a game drive, end off with a nice lunch, and then from there depart back to the hotel.